Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. This is my first video in a series of videos I will do called Unpopular Opinion. So in this series of videos, which I will release monthly, one per month, I will express an opinion that I have that is, as the title suggests, unpopular, and it will always be something related to a film or television show or multiple films or multiple shows that I cover on this channel or have covered in the past on Acton Tomka's channel, which was my previous channel. So generally a lot of them will be in the Star Trek realm or Star Wars, but anything in the general sci-fi or fantasy realm, stuff that I cover on this channel, basically. And it will be an opinion that I hold very strongly about a particular film or show, that I feel like I'm on an island with it, that I feel like I am the only one or one of the only ones who feels a particular way. And in this case, I really do feel like I'm the absolute only one in the entire universe who sees Star Trek First Contact for what it actually is, which is objectively a bad film. I don't understand why people love it so much. So that is what this video is about. Now, Star Trek First Contact, just as a little bit of a review, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, and in case you live under a rock or something like that. That's the 1996 film starring Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Brent Spiner, the all Next Generation crew, because it's the second Next Generation feature film. It also stars James Cromwell, Alfred Woodward, and Alice Krige as the Borg Queen, and it is about the Borg going back in time to stop First Contact, which is Zefram Cochrane, played by James Cromwell, discovering the warp drive and making first contact with an alien race. So that's that movie. So it is an extremely popular film amongst the Star Trek fans. So on IMDb, it has a rating of 7.6. Which is the second highest rating amongst the original films, original cast member films. So I'm not talking about the reboots right now. It is 0.1 points behind Wrath of Khan for second place. Wrath of Khan has a 7.7 score. And First Contact is just behind that at 7.6. Now you throw in the reboots, and Into Darkness is actually tied with Wrath of Khan at 7.7, which is also kind of crazy. I mean, I like Into Darkness well enough, but tied with Wrath of Khan. And Star Trek 2009 has a score of 7.9, so it's the highest rated one. And now, believe you me, I will get to you later, Star Trek 2009. Star Trek 2009, also an awful film. But the reason why I chose to cover First Contact first is because with Star Trek 2009, I actually have encountered quite a few people who agree with me on it, either online or in real life, or critics. I've definitely seen a lot more dissenting opinions, or heard a lot more dissenting opinions on Star Trek 2009 than I have with First Contact. Even though Star Trek 2009 has the highest rating on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, which I'll get to in a second, I still wanted to do First Contact first because I really truly feel like I'm the only one in the universe who feels this way about First Contact, whereas there are others who feel the same way about 2009. But don't worry, I will still get to it eventually. I won't do it next month because I don't want the first 2 months to be both about Star Trek films, but I will get to it eventually. Now moving on to Rotten Tomatoes scores. So Star Trek First Contact has a critic score of 92%, second only to Star Trek 2009 with a 94% critic score. And when it goes into fan scores, we've got an 89% score for Star Trek First Contact, which is tied with Into Darkness with 89%, slightly behind Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan at 90%, slightly behind Star Trek 2009 at 91%. So the point is, First Contact is up there. It is one of the most popular Star Trek films out of all of the Star Trek films. And this is reinforced by the fact that I have heard so much about how wonderful this film is. Anytime that I have ever mentioned how I don't like this film in any previous video that I did, usually on my previous channel, Acton Tomko's channel, I would get comments saying, how could you not like Star Trek First Contact? It's an incredible film. To which I reply, how can you like it? It's such a bad movie. I have heard from pretty much everybody that this is an amazing film. So I'm very, very much on an island with my opinion. And I kind of have a little bit of a theory. I don't know how accurate it is, but okay, let me ask you this question. If you like Star Trek First Contact or love Star Trek First Contact, think it's a great film, one of your favorite Star Trek films, how old were you when you first saw it? My guess, my theory, is that in all likelihood, your answer is somewhere under the age of 18. Because when you watch a film when you're a kid, and I have been victim to this myself, so I'm not knocking on anybody. I think this is a very normal thing. When you first watch a film when you're younger, before your brain is fully formed and before you really can start thinking more critically, or in this case, maybe before you really understood the history of the Borg and the fact that the way the Borg are portrayed in this film completely spit in the face of everything that was previously established about them. Maybe you didn't get that yet because you hadn't followed it as much as I had. I was in my 20s at this point. I had seen Best of Both Worlds a million times, Q-Who a million times. I had read some of the novels that have the Borg in it. I have read supplementary materials about the Borg. I have studied the Borg, basically. So I knew a lot about the Borg. So when I watched First Contact, I was like, what in the hell is this? This is completely going against everything they've ever established about the Borg. But if you were younger, maybe you don't have that history established yet at that point. So you develop this nostalgia. The nostalgia latches on to you, and no matter what, that nostalgia is never going away. You will always, for the rest of your life, be under the opinion that this is a quality film, when in fact it is not. That is my best guess. Of course, there's going to be someone in the comments going, I first saw First Contact when I was 35. But I still think those type of people would be the outliers. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the film, break it down, and explain why I think that it is very bad writing and a very bad film in general. And I'm going to start with a little bit of an overview. So kind of the broad overview of my feelings of this film is that it plays like a film that was created in a boardroom by a bunch of people wearing suits. Now, I know the credit is given to Brendan Braga and Ronald D. Moore, who Ronald D. Moore I really actually like a lot generally. But in my imagination, obviously I don't know that this is how it actually went down. I'm just saying this is how it plays to me. Like a film where Brandon Braga, Ronald D. Moore, Rick Berman were all sitting in a room with I'm picturing a long ass table of people in suits, white people in suits who know nothing about creativity, know nothing about writing, and they're pitching to them this idea of we want our next Star Trek film to be about the Borg. And so the long ass table of white people in suits says, yeah, that's great. The Borg are very popular. The Borg will make us money. But hey, you know what else will make us a lot of money? Remember Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home? Huge success. So I want you to combine the Borg with time travel. And in my head, I'm picturing Ronald D. Moore saying, but the Borg don't travel back in time. That doesn't make any sense. We don't care. We want dollar signs. So it's funny. I think there's a very apropos line in the film itself that comes a little bit later in the film when James Cromwell, as Zephyr Cochrane, says to Commander Riker, you know what motivates me? Dollar signs. And I think that film applies to that quote rather, applies to the creation of this film. You know what motivated the whole concept of this film? not good writing, not trying to tell a good story, not trying to have good continuity or be consistent with what had already been established. You know what actually motivated this film? Dollar signs. And whether or not there actually was really a board meeting with a long-ass table with white people in suits or not, the concept is still the same, and it is still true. And I know for a fact that it's true when it comes to the Borg Queen. They have said many, many times over the years, the creative team behind this film, that the reason why the Borg Queen was invented because it was felt that we needed the face of a villain, that just a collective voice of the Borg is not going to play well on a feature film. For a feature film, we need to the villain has to have a personality, a face. In other words, in order to sell tickets and get money, we have to invent the Borg Queen. Now, I'll get to the Borg Queen a little bit later. She is extremely problematic, but you can tell that she wasn't created in the interest of good storytelling or by having good continuity with what had been previously established. It was all about, as Zephyr Cochrane said, dollar signs. That is the whole, that's the crux of it. That is the heart of why this is just not a quality film, because it didn't care about continuity. It didn't care about good writing. The hell with writing. There's lazy writing all over the place because it's not about that. It's about making money. And for me, having grown up on The Next Generation in particular, this was heartbreaking because The Next Generation as a show, when it was good, and it wasn't about making money at the time. So when it wasn't good, it wasn't because they didn't try, just because, they had a bad day, whatever. It didn't work. You had to do 24 episodes in a season, so they can't all be good. But it wasn't because they didn't care about the writing. They didn't care about the quality. They were just going for the dollar signs. But in this film, that is why it fails. So let me start from the beginning of the film. So you've got the Borg cube attacking Earth. Now, there's a general Borg problem that's not unique to this film that they have not ever really solved, and that's the fact that if you send more than one Borg cube to Earth, they would wipe it out instantly. So they always just send one lone cube. That happened in Best of Both Worlds too, to be fair. So to bring the Borg back in another film, or in a film, you're going to have that same problem. But really, you send one Borg cube to Earth when you could just, send a fleet of Borg cubes, and there is absolutely nothing anybody could do to stop it. But that's not necessarily unique to this film. That's just a general Borg problem. But then you have Captain Picard comes up with a way to destroy the Borg, which you are to assume is based on his experience as Locutus, some memory of their systems, because when he initially tells Data to attack such and such a system, Data says, but that's not a crucial system. And Captain Picard says, just trust me. He gets all the other ships to go along with it, and then destroy the Borg cube. Now, what exactly was it that Captain Picard knew? Unclear. They never tell you because, again, lazy writing. Who cares? Whatever. It's something he learned from Locutus. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. We don't care about writing. So they destroyed the Borg cube, which then shoots out the little ball, which has the Borg Queen on it. So now, you can forgive. If you can forgive it up to this point, as I said, you're going to have the Borg. You're always going to have the Borg problem. Now, what do the Borg do next? What they should do is call for more Borg. Go into their transwarp, go away, get reinforcements, come back, and attack Earth again, assuming that they really want Earth that badly. That's the other thing I never really understood, why the Borg are so obsessed with Earth. That becomes even more of a problem in Voyager, why they're so obsessed with the humans, particularly when there's millions of planets they can also assimilate. They go assimilate more planets and then come back and get Earth. But anyways, so that is what that little ball should do. But inexplicably, it goes back in time. Why did the Borg go back in time? This is something that has never been mentioned before and after. It's not something that's typical behavior of the Borg. And in fact, it goes against everything that has been established, because what has been established is they not only want to assimilate people, but they are very interested in technology. So why would they go back to a period in Earth where there's not technology? Why? Why would they do that? So they can sell movie tickets, dollar signs. It's just completely illogical for them to go back in time to a period when there is not adequate technology for them to assimilate. Now, let's say you overlook that. Now, okay, so fine, whatever. They go back in time. So they could actually go back anywhere. They could go back at any point in time and just go right down to Earth and assimilate the fuck out of everybody in like 5 seconds. They can assimilate the whole planet if they go back far enough. I mean, especially in this time period, they established as post-nuclear, blah, blah, blah. So they could assimilate people in a second. If they went back to like the 14th century or the Middle Ages, whatever, 17th century, any other time, assimilate the whole planet instantly. Again, that doesn't really accomplish their goals because there's not technology. But we're putting that aside. They've already decided to go back in time. So what they should do is just go directly down there and assimilate everyone instantly. Like there's nothing that's really going to stop them from doing that. Remember, they don't know at this point that, the Enterprise has followed them. But their goal is not to just go and assimilate people. It's this convoluted plot to stop first contact from happening. Why? What does that accomplish? That makes very little sense. And first of all, how do the Borg are studying Earth history? They're like, it's just so convoluted. Oh, if we stop Zephyr and Cochrane from meeting the Vulcans, then the Earth will be easier to assimilate? They're easy to assimilate right now! Why do you have to stop first contact? I don't get it. So, anyway, okay, so put that aside. Now that they've decided to do that, whatever. The next thing is that, they fail in that. The Enterprise follows them. They weren't expecting the Enterprise to follow them. Enterprise destroys the little Borg sphere. And so what do the Borg do next? Logically, they beam down to the planet and assimilate everyone instantly. Even with the Enterprise there, it would be difficult for them to stop them because they could just go down and just start assimilating, and build a Borg army pretty quickly with this, these people who are vulnerable, as they establish. It's a post-nuclear time. So they would be very vulnerable. So they could really start assimilating a Borg army before the Enterprise could do shit, and then eventually assimilate the Enterprise. But instead, another convoluted plot where they go over to the Enterprise. Why? Unclear. and they have to set up this the weird satellite dish thing that comes in later in the film on the Enterprise so they can contact the other Borg. What do they need the other Borg for? They could have just beamed down to the planet and they could have a Borg army already because they could already just be assimilating people right now. Why do they need to call? So the movie can happen. That's basically the only reason. Like, everything is just so convoluted. Everything is just so forced. And again, if you're watching this when you're a kid, you're not thinking about all these things. But me, someone who is a huge fan of the Borg, is just questioning every step of the Borg's behavior because this makes no sense. I've studied the Borg, as I said. I've watched them all the time. So this just is completely out of character for them to do any of this crap. It just makes no sense, and it just feels like to get dollar signs. Like, we wanted this movie to happen so we can make money, and that's the whole thing feels that way to me. Now let's get into the Borg Queen. The Borg Queen. Okay, as I alluded to earlier, the Borg Queen was definitely an invention purely because they thought it would sell more movie tickets, because this long boardroom of white dudes in suits believed that you can't have a villain that's this collective voice. You have to have the face of the villain in order for people to go to a feature film and want to see it. I strongly disagree. I think the film would have done just as well with the collective Borg, because that's what made the Borg popular in the first place. This collective creepy voice that said, "We are the Borg, you will be assimilated." Now, instead, inventing this corny, terrible, mustache twirly, awful villain and making her an individual who uses the word "I" a lot. And when Data points this out in the film, she has some stupid line like, "Oh, you're too feeble to understand why I would use the word "I." No, it's because it absolutely makes no sense and goes against everything that had ever been established about the Borg. But you don't have an explanation for it. You come with this lame-ass excuse that Data is just not smart enough to understand, which is bull. Shit. The fact of the matter is the entire existence of the Borg Queen completely contradicts everything that had ever been previously established by the previous episodes of The Next Generation. And then they try to retcon her into Best of Both Worlds and say that she was there with Locutus. The hell she was! There is 0% chance that happened. That absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. The Borg Queen was nowhere near that ship. She was invented just for this film to sell movie tickets, dollar signs, and that's all there is to it. Now, of course, she goes on into Voyager and becomes even worse, even more cartoonish, more ridiculous. And it's funny, I have heard a lot of people agree that the Borg Queen is awful in Star Trek Voyager, but then some of those same people will say that First Contact is still somehow a good movie. And they'll say that Voyager is where the Borg jumped the shark. No. No, if you're admitting that the Borg Queen is what caused the Borg to jump the shark, then First Contact is where the Borg jumped the shark. It is in this film that was all about making money and not about telling a good story, where they invented this character that made absolutely no sense, and that is where the Borg jumped the shark. Now, they do take it to the next level of ridiculousness in Voyager, but it begins here in this film. What exactly is she doing with Data? Unclear. She's like giving him, she's making him more human, but making him into a Borg. Like I just rewatched this film, by the way, and I still don't really like it. It's very convoluted. I still don't really get it. And haven't we seen this already? Something similar in Descent Part 2, which was also very bad, actually. Anytime someone tries to make Data evil, it just doesn't work. This whole thing just didn't work. And all the interactions between the Borg Queen and Data were absolutely cartoonish. She is the most ridiculous mustache twirly villain I've ever seen. And she shouldn't even exist in the first place. So how anyone can look at this character and go, "Oh, this is a great movie." I just don't get it. I don't understand. Okay, just a few other things. Another thing that the boardroom of white guys in suits came up with for dollar signs is, we've got to do a revenge film. Wrath of Khan, big moneymaker. Somebody's got to be going for revenge. So if you need to make Captain Picard act completely out of character, who cares? I think the scene where he is most out of character is when he says to Worf, "Oh, you're just scared. You're just scared of the Borg." Who the hell is this guy? That is not Jean-Luc Picard. And you can't use the excuse, "Oh, he's just caught up in his revenge and that's why he's acting like that." Well, Jean-Luc Picard would not ever allow himself to get caught up in revenge that much to where he would say, "You're scared," to Worf. And then he gets a little speech from the substitute Guinan, and then he calms down, and then he turns back into normal Jean-Luc Picard again. I was like, what in the hell am I watching? What is this? That is not Jean-Luc Picard. Also, yeah, I just alluded to it. You have the substitute Guinan. I guess they couldn't get Whoopi Goldberg for this film or whatever, so they get this other wise black lady, I guess. What the hell? Like, it was just felt so forced, like it was force fed, so unnatural and forced, like a lot of things in this film. And I gotta talk about assimilate this. When Worf says assimilate this, they may as well have just had Worf speak in an Austrian accent and go, assimilate these. I mean, it wouldn't have been any more ridiculous than anything else in this film. He may as well have just talked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just go for it. If you're going to be corny, just go for it. So yeah, those are a few of the other things that I found to be a bit ridiculous. Okay, now, so just so you know that I don't hate everything about this film, I did actually enjoy the Zefram Cochrane plot. I enjoyed James Cromwell. He's very good in this film. There was some comic relief there. I will always laugh at the line where Riker says, "You told them about the statue?" I mean, that was all very good. The problem, of course, again, is that they should never be here in the first place, because it makes no sense for the Borg to A, go back in time, and to B, to try to stop first contact. If they really were going to go back in time, they could go anywhere. But and also, I always had an issue with this whole concept of Zefram Cochrane creating the warp drive, and then that's what gave the Vulcans attention, and that's why that's how the Earth started having alien contact. But I believe that was actually established prior to this movie. I don't think that's the fault of this movie, but that whole thing I've always had some issues with, and it actually goes against established canon of Zefram Cochrane in the original series, but that's a whole other thing. I don't need to get into that. I did actually enjoy James Cromwell, even if there's absolutely no reason that they should have ever been in that time period in the first place. I got to give the actor some credit there. So I'm not going to necessarily do this for every one of these unpopular opinion videos, but I do think it's apropos here to give my personal rating for Star Trek First Contact out of 10, just as I would do with any other thing that I am reviewing. And I'm not always going to do that, but in this case it makes sense because you can compare to the 7.6 that it averages on IMDb. So 7.6 is the average. My rating is a 3. A very generous 3 in my opinion, because, I just love seeing Picard and Riker and Data and Troy and Dr. Crusher and LaForge. That's just my crew. So every film with them in it gets a point just for them being in it. So like 2 is probably the lowest that I would ever give a Next Generation film. And as I said, I enjoyed the James Cromwell of it all, so it's a 3. Otherwise, this is a poorly written, poorly constructed film without a care in the world for good writing or for storytelling or for continuity. It was all about the dollar signs, and it just enrages me every time I see this film. And by the way, when I just watched it for this review, it's the first time that I had watched it in a while, and I was open to, maybe I'll have to change this whole video. Maybe I'll like it better than I think I did. Nope. Nope. I am still enraged by it every bit as much as I always have been. So it is a 3. And that is it for this month's installment of Unpopular Opinion. So please subscribe to my channel. You can check out the discussion tab on my homepage. Every month I will post my calendar there. I will also release a video every month that will have my calendar in that video. So check out all of that, and you can see sometime in mid-month in October I will do another Unpopular Opinion video on a completely different topic. As I said, I'm not going to do Star Trek 2 in a row, so it'll be a different topic. But please subscribe so you can check out all of that, and then check out all the things I do like about Star Trek. You can see my favorite TOS, favorite TNG, and favorite DS9 episode videos, also least favorite for all of those series as well. And check out everything on my channel. Subscribe, and thank you so much. I will see you later. Goodbye.